All right, Josh. Ryan Preece continues a strong run with RFK Racing, but I hate that we're gonna even get into this because he's my favorite driver. But what's going on with Brad Keselowski? Only two finishes inside the top 20, and that was at Coda and Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's got a lot going on the ownership side, and that's kind of taken up some of his more concentration on at the racetrack or what. But his teammates are running pretty good, and like you've noted, he's only finished inside the top 20 twice, and one of them was at Coda, and the other was at Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering because this season they made a change with the crew chief, obviously going from Matt McCall to Jeremy Bullins. And I know him and Bullins have had great history together over at Penske. But now that they are working together with the next gen car, it's almost as if that team just has to relearn communication with each other because this car is just so different from the cars that they worked in before.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I know nowadays we see a lot of the younger generation drivers having the immediate success in the car, and some of the older guys like Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski seem to maybe struggle a bit more. Kyle picked it up pretty quick when he first got to RCR and won a couple of races, but he's been kind of out to lunch just like Brad Keselowski has recently.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the team turns it around. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Priest. I think Buscher's even running pretty well. It's kind of in the middle of those two. Um, I don't know. Do you think they turn it around by the time we start getting in toward the chase, or the playoffs?
I think they can at some point. I mean, the performance is there. We've seen it with Reese. Brad Keselowski's a veteran. He's gonna figure something out. Like he ran pretty good last season at Bristol, so I wouldn't be surprised if they put together a good run this weekend if they can get the strategy and the cautions to fall right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how it goes. All right, we're a little bit late on this one, Josh, but a couple weeks ago we had quite an interesting Martinsville race for the Xfinity Series specifically. And off the top of my head, I think of two drivers, Austin Hill and Sammy Smith. Austin Hill managed to knock a car in out of the way that was 4 cars ahead of him, and we'll talk about Sammy Smith in a minute. But what do you think of the whole Austin Hill deal? And he ended up winning that race, by the way.
Yeah, that crash ended up taking out Jesse Love, his teammate. Um, yeah, one thing that was funny after that race is there was a lot of talk on TV and between the drivers about how bad the race was, just people running into each other, and it kind of just being more of a joke than anything. Um, Dale Earnhardt Jr. mentioned how it was funny that Austin Hill was one of the guys that spoke up in the drivers' meeting the week after and said that he could be one of the guys to potentially take the young guys under his wing and kind of show him the ropes as to how to drive and stuff. And Junior said he thought that was funny coming from Austin Hill because he's one of the guys that partakes in some of the bad situations.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Editors, I'm going to go ahead and have you throw up a Sammy Smith clip for us. Lap 256, Sammy Smith and Taylor Gray. This is ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah, the exchanges the two had prior. Sammy moved Taylor, and then Taylor moved Sammy. Much politer than Sammy did in the first place, and then I thought they were even, and then Sammy Smith goes and does this and doesn't even win the race.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. A lot of tore up race cars there. In my opinion, inexcusable from Sammy Smith. Really hope he got a nice image check from Dale Jr. after that.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that he's going to be really good at, and getting him to realize that, hey, you can make those mistakes, but from those mistakes you gotta prove that you can change and be a better driver. And I think he's got the capability, but we'll see.
All right, Josh, we've had some seems to be some trends toward the end of some of these races lately. We've had some late race cautions. I'm going to go ahead and start us off with a somewhat controversial clip between Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson. Editors, if you can go ahead and toss that one up on screen for us. This was toward the end of the race at Darlington, lap 290 off of turn 2.
Yeah, it's just a couple of laps left. Tyler Reddick and Ryan Blaney racing for the win. Reddick gets wide, hits the wall. Kyle Larson back there, 180 some laps down, gets way on the brakes, thinking he has to, do that to avoid it. And Bubba Wallace spins him. A couple laps remaining, took the win away from Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, it's a little strange. I would like to see some more angles of that. I know for whatever reason it seems to be kind of difficult to find anything other than that one angle that we have right now, but I don't know. What do you think about it? Do you think it was kind of intentional? Was there any games being played there?
I mean, you never know, but I think they came out and showed the SMT from Kyle Larson, and he got on the brakes like he said he did, and Bubba just said he thought Larson may have braked way too much, and he wasn't expecting it because Reddick was out of the groove and hit the wall, and you never know where they're going to bounce, but as far down as he was with 4 or 5 laps remaining, I don't even know why he was passing Bubba at that point, but it was to me pretty convenient that 2311 had just lost the lead. Wallace spins Larson. Byron dominated the race. Larson's the one that ends up spinning again right at the end. So, not to say it's fishy, but it was just convenient to me that those two groups were kind of the ones that were involved in making a overtime finish right at the end. And none of those two teams even won. All right, Donnie, we head to Bristol this weekend. We've just seen Denny Hamlin win back-to-back races, Martinsville and Darlington. We're going to another potentially high-wear track in Bristol. The spring race, like we saw last year, was kind of a mess with the tire wear. And Denny Hamlin seems to be the guy when it comes to a race like that. We see him go to Richmond and Darlington and some of those places. Do you think he might be the guy to beat this weekend if we get another potentially high-wear race?
I wouldn't say there's any reason to believe otherwise. If there's anybody there that, if you look at the high wear race last time, it was what? Hamlin, Truex, and Keselowski. Truex isn't on the track anymore, and Brad's nowhere to be seen inside the top 20, so that leaves one guy left for you. That would be Denny Hamlin. And, to be honest with you, man, Joe Gibbs is on it this year. I don't know what they're doing, but, 2 times now, you're up for 3 wins in a row for your drivers. That's insane.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think he can definitely do it. It would be pretty insane if we get 9 races in and one team has already won 6. I know we saw last year out of that Joe Gibbs Racing. Ty Gibbs took off. He started, I think, on the front row or something, and he ran really well. And then they started just shredding tires, and he went straight to the back. We might see that again. I know I saw some photos from this weekend, and there might be some cording issues. So maybe depending on the weather, we might get a repeat of that spring race.
Absolutely impressive run by that team. When is the last time? And have we seen it at all in this car generation where we see a team win 6, 9 races in a season, let alone 6 of the first 9 races?
Yeah, definitely that early in the season. I don't think we've seen it. 2022 might have been a year for Hendrick Motorsports that they won a lot of races. I don't know how many right offhand, but I know they won a lot of races that year. So it's been done before, but I think like we've mentioned in past episodes, it's just not something that's really consistently done in the next gen car. One team doesn't really get hot like this. It doesn't seem like.
Well, if anyone's a favorite right now for the team title, I think it'd be the boys over at Gibbs.
All right, Donnie. Like we mentioned earlier, we've got Bristol this weekend. I figured we'd make some race picks and see who we think might win. I was thinking, we just saw Kyle Larson win the Xfinity race, and he's doing the triple again. He missed out on the truck win, but he did win the Xfinity race, led over 200 laps. I was thinking that Kyle Larson might be the guy to watch tomorrow in the Cup race at Bristol. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, I think based on if anyone's listened to the other segments that we've done so far, uh, it's either going to be between Larson or Hamlin. I'm gonna have to go with Hamlin if you're picking Larson, and if you would have picked Hamlin, I would have picked Larson. So honestly, the either one, Larson alone is doing great things, even across multiple series. He's on fire right now, as well as Joe Gibbs Racing. So, I mean, I don't know. You tell me if I'm a betting man, Josh, who should I put my money on if you were to give me a list of drivers?
I think the two we've mentioned would probably be the best. We've seen Ryan Blaney have great long run speed this season. So I mean, if he's able to take care of his tires, if there's any kind of issues with that, I'd say he'd be a really good pick. He always runs really well at Bristol. Um, he was the driver that we unfortunately saw lose the race at Darlington because of one of our late race cautions. So I would definitely say him. Brad Keselowski, like we mentioned, ran really well last year. And then even Kyle Busch, see if Kyle Busch can get back going in the right direction. Bristol's a great place for him to be able to do that. I think he's like 4 wins away right now or something from the all-time lead, tying the all-time lead for wins at Bristol. So if there's any place for him to get back going in the right direction, it would be this weekend for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. But if you could say real quick off the top of your head, assuming this cording thing goes away and the track doesn't wear out the tires that hard, who's the guy?
That was Kyle Larson. He did it today. We'll see if he can go back to back.